I've seen a lot of stupid things in my life, but nothing, and I mean nothing, beats the sight of a man in a crisp HOA uniform clinging to the hood of his truck, screaming like a kid who just found out Santa isn't real, while my bull duke slowly pushes him into a drainage ditch like he's rearranging furniture. The real kicker? He honked first. That's how this whole mess started. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. My name's Tom Bennett, and I live on the last strip of old farmland in a town slowly swallowed by cookie cutter homes and artificial lakes that smell like band aids. My family's been here 4 generations. We've got a modest white farmhouse with peeling paint, a red barn that leans like it's had one too many beers, and 12 acres of pasture where my animals roam free, including Duke. He's a Scottish Highland bull with horns like ship anchors and the patience of a retired bouncer. You don't mess with Duke. You certainly don't honk at him. Enter Greg Matson, the so-called HOA Cop. 2 years ago, he moved into the subdivision next to my land and immediately started waging a passive-aggressive war. Clipboard in hand, frowning permanently, thinking every patch of grass should be golf course perfect and every cow should be behind glass. The morning it all went sideways. I was repairing a fence post Duke had destroyed in what I assume was a heated disagreement with a passing pickup. Suddenly, the unmistakable sound of Matson's truck humming down the gravel access road reached my ears. Technically, it was a private easement, rarely used, but he liked to cruise by, probably hoping to catch me violating some imaginary HOA law. Duke was grazing, minding his own business, probably contemplating the meaning of hay. Matson, in full suburban bravado, honked, a long, arrogant blast, not a polite beep. Duke lifted his head slowly like a man interrupted mid-nap. I knew then this was about to get interesting. In one majestic, slow-motion moment, Duke strode toward the truck like a sheriff in a spaghetti western. Matson tried to reverse, but the road was too narrow. He honked again. Wrong move. Duke lowered his head, picked up speed, and rammed the bumper with a solid thunk that would make a demolition derby proud. The truck lurched sideways, slipped nose first into the ditch, tires still spinning. Matson clambered out, mud splashing his polished boots, screaming and flailing. I stood frozen on the fence line, one hand on a post, the other gripping a hammer, wondering if I'd be arrested, sued, or just yelled at by the internet. By noon, the footage was viral. My nephew's Ring camera had caught everything: the honk, Duke's retaliation, and Matson's muddy downfall. He uploaded it with the caption, HOA Cop versus Country Bull, who wins? Within 6 hours, over 2 million views. People added music, slow motion, eagle screeches, you name it. And me? I'd never had strangers ask if they could buy a bull a beer in my life. This was just the beginning. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. By the next morning, the aftermath of Duke versus Matson had become the talk of the town. I was sipping my coffee on the porch when the first formal notice landed. A thick envelope stamped with the Willow Creek HOA seal. My name, Thomas Bennett, occupier of a non-compliant agricultural establishment, was typed in bold. It accused me of harboring a hostile large animal threat on what they called shared residential land and demanded Duke be removed within 48 hours. I laughed so hard I nearly sprayed coffee across the white farmhouse. Their map, clearly drawn with crayons and wishful thinking. My property had never been part of the HOA. The pasture, the barn, Duke, all legally mine. I stapled the notice to the fence for Duke to inspect, saying, "You've been served, buddy." He blinked once and returned to munching grass. But the next level of absurdity came when Matson returned in full enforcement mode, this time with 2 loyal HOA board members in tow. Philip, the inflatable Halloween decoration fanatic, and Marcia, sweater enthusiast extraordinaire, trudged behind him. Matson demanded a formal inspection. I offered lemonade. Only Philip accepted. He spent an hour snapping photos of Duke from every angle, muttering about livestock code violations and unauthorized barn paint. I asked if he'd ever met a real cow. Duke stared at him like he was an annoying crow. Then the first viral consequence hit. A local reporter, Ela, showed up on my porch with a camera crew. I agreed to an interview, Duke standing like a Highland monarch behind me. Matson's attempts to control the narrative backfired spectacularly. The footage showed him trapped in the ditch while Duke calmly returned to pasture. Public opinion immediately swung in our favor. By midweek, Matson escalated again. He filed a motion with the zoning board trying to classify my land as semi-suburban encroachment to annex it into HOA jurisdiction. I brought in my secret weapon, My sister, Jo, a small-town lawyer and former rodeo queen. She read the motion and laughed so hard she spilled iced tea on her boots. Then she plotted strategy. The day of the hearing arrived. The courtroom was packed with neighbors, reporters, and Duke enthusiasts. Matson presented his case. Duke is a 2,000-pound missile threatening our tranquility. Blurry PowerPoint images of Duke's nostrils accompanied his claims. I bit back laughter. Jo rose, calm and commanding. She laid out the facts. My property's agricultural zoning, clear exclusion from HOA authority, and Matson's illegal boundary manipulations. Then she played the viral video. Laughter erupted as the courtroom watched Matson's truck slowly slide into the ditch while Duke, calm as ever, did his duty. The judge muttered, "Well, that's unfortunate," and dismissed the case before lunch. Matson stormed out, red-faced, mud-caked, and utterly humiliated. Neighborhood morale soared, and Duke's legend grew by the minute. By the end of the week, the HOA's attempts to bully me were in shambles. Notices, zoning motions, and intimidation tactics had failed spectacularly. Duke continued his peaceful reign over the pasture, oblivious to the chaos he'd caused, but fully aware of his newfound celebrity status. By the time the courtroom fiasco ended, you'd think Matson would have learned his lesson. But if there's one thing about HOA zealots, it's that they never quit until the gavel smacks them in the face, sometimes twice. 2 days later, I came home to find a fresh final demand taped to my mailbox. This one was written in bold red ink, accusing me of reckless animal endangerment and threatening fines up to $15,000 if Duke wasn't gone by Friday. The kicker? The letter was signed HOA Enforcement Division, as if Matson had deputized himself into some suburban FBI. That was the last straw. My sister Jo filed suit the very next morning. The charges? Harassment, defamation, attempted annexation without cause, and property damage, because someone still had to pay for the ditch repairs and the fence Matson's truck flattened when Duke introduced it to gravity. We asked for $25,000 in damages plus attorney fees. The trial wasn't just a trial, it was theater. Reporters filled the gallery, neighbors packed the benches, and someone even brought Duke's face on a cardboard cutout. Matson strutted in with his board members like he was leading a parade, but the smugness melted fast once Jo started her opening remarks. She dismantled their entire case piece by piece. Trespassing. Matson had repeatedly stepped onto private agricultural land without permission. Impersonating authority, his HOA enforcement letters and fake seals carried no legal weight. Property destruction. His honking, provocation, and reckless driving caused the ditch crash, damaging both his truck and my fence. Then she wheeled out a projector and played the viral clip again. Duke lowering his head, one honk too many, and Matson's truck rolling into the ditch like a slow-motion blooper reel. The room howled with laughter, and even the judge cracked a smile before banging the gavel for order. Matson tried to claim emotional trauma. The judge raised an eyebrow and said, "Sir, you honked at a bull." That line alone made headlines the next morning. In the end, the ruling was clear. My property was 100% outside HOA jurisdiction. Duke was a legally protected agricultural animal, and Matson's harassment had crossed into malicious territory. The HOA was ordered to pay me $22,000 in damages, plus all legal costs. As for Duke, he grazed in peace, occasionally lifting his head when tourists stopped by to snap photos. Someone even started selling t-shirts that read, "Don't honk at the bull." Standing by the fence that evening, I scratched Duke between the horns and said, "Well, buddy, we won." He flicked his tail, snorted, and went back to his hay.